Hello and welcome to this week's Casual Chats. This week we're going to do it a little bit differently. Today I will be covering the Tales of Aria pre-release I went to. Tomorrow I will be covering the Innistrad Midnight Hunt pre-release I went to. In both cases I will be going over the pulls I got first, then the sealed deck I constructed for the event, any combos or anything like that I noticed or managed to pull off, and how the results went versus the opponents that I had. So on to the Tales of Aria pre-release breakdown. First up are the polls. You got 2 promos for attending from a selection of 3 amulets chosen randomly. The first amulet I got was the Amulet of Ice in a very nice cold foil treatment. The second one was the Amulet of Earth in an equally nice cold foil treatment that I'm sure is not showing up well on the screen. Out of my packs I got 4 Majestics, 2 Foil Majestics. The first Foil Majestic I got was Lighted Up. This one I was actually really excited to get because this is the piece of art that I really like from the set, and it's also on a playmat. I don't know what the acquisition method for the playmat is at the moment, but if I can get my hands on one I'd really like to. And the next one caused a bit of a stir when I got it. It was Channel Lake Frigid. So everyone at the event was convinced that this was the alt art cold foil version, which is worth several £100s. I was kind of skeptical because the sides weren't foiling up the way I would expect them to, but I went along with the flow and I was excited too. When I got home, however, I did search it up and it turns out this is not the alt art one. This is the normal version. It's actually quite hard to tell. The main difference appears to be the white tree in the corner, which is slightly different in the other version. It's still nice to get, not a half a grand worth, but it's still a nice card to have. The other 2 Majestics I got were non-foil, and they are Tear Asunder and Awakening. I haven't actually looked up much information on these 2 cards, but from the people at the pre-release they seem to really like Awakening and thought it might be worth something later on. From the remaining packs, I also got a foil rare, which was Weave Ice. Nice and shiny as well. And the remaining 3 were just normal commons. They were Heaven's Claws, Flake Out, and Strength of Sequoia. I'm not going to bother running through all of the rare cards because they're not really worth anything and they're not too exciting. Now we're going to switch to a static overlay, mainly because I was showing the cards originally through video, but my camera does not like me moving around at the moment and it's not that great. So we're going to switch to an overlay and I'm going to run through my deck breakdown. So for the event, I decided to play Lexi. I had decided I'd be playing Lexi before I even went to the event, so my card pool wasn't really going to matter. During the event, I managed to get a Coat of Frost, a Mark of Lightning, and a Honing Hood in the equipment slots, and I actually did get the Shiver token, so I didn't need to use the substitute tokens that were available. The main build-arounds for the Lexi deck are the Shiver bow and Lexi herself. The bow Shiver allows you to once per turn put a card from your hand into the arsenal, an arrow attack card, and when you do so it has to be face up and the card will either gain Dominate or +1 to its attack. Lexi's card requires you to have already had a card in your arsenal, and you can reveal that card. If it is Lightning, you get Go Again. If it is Ice, you get to give your opponent a Frostbite token. The Frostbite token mechanic, which was introduced in this set, gives your opponent a token that makes their next action cost +1. This can be useful for slowing down your opponent or forcing them to pitch an extra card if they've had an unfortunate hand, and can really put a wrench in your opponent's plans. In terms of the equipment, the Honing Hood proved to be very useful. The ability to swap out cards in your arsenal allowed me to store blue pitch cards in the arsenal at the end of my previous turn, then swap them out with a red pitch arrow so that I could pitch the 3 and then spend it to do the red damage. The Mark of Lightning didn't prove to be too useful in any of my matches, but I can see that 1 damage for free being very useful for just knocking off the next hit on an opponent, or topping up for some other effect. Coat of Frost is just a nice little extra to give your opponent a free frostbite token, and that can again be useful for slowing them down or making their first action very expensive. Throughout the course of the game, I never managed to stack more than 2 frostbite tokens in a turn, but I can see if you could get 3 frostbite tokens out, I could see you seriously hampering an opponent by forcing them to have to pitch 2 cards to do anything at the start of their next turn. Next up were the arrows. I have never played an archer before, so I wasn't sure how many arrows I'd need, so I went with 11. I felt a third of the deck was a pretty sufficient amount. Of those, from my draw pool, I got 2 Frazzles in red, 1 Buzzbolt in blue, 1 Flakeout in blue, 1 Flakeout in red, 1 Blizzard Bolt in yellow, 1 Chilling Ice Vein in red, 1 Snapshot in blue, 1 Snapshot in red, and 1 Bolt and Shot in red. Next up were elemental cards. So as Lexi's effect requires you to have either ice or lightning, and many of the arrows have a fused effect, which requires you to reveal an ice or lightning card from your hand to activate that effect. I decided to build around it. Of the 2 effects, many of the cards I had in my deck already had Go Again, so I was less focused on lightning and more focused on ice. For lightning, I had Heaven's Claw in red, Ball Lightning in red, Lightning Surge in yellow, Electrify in blue, Electrify in red, Weaving Lightning in blue, and Lightning Press in blue. For ice, I had Polar Blast in yellow, Winter's Grasp in red, Weave Ice in blue, Icy Encounter in yellow, Icy Encounter in red, Winter's Bite in blue, Amulet of Ice in blue, and Channel Lake Frigid in blue. The remaining cards in my deck were made up of elemental actions, Entwine Ice in red twice, and Entwine Lightning in yellow with Light It Up in yellow. And the very last card in my deck was the single Overflex in red that I drew. So with my deck built, things that came up and proved to be useful were the card Overflex, which gives your next arrow attack +4 damage. I wish I'd gotten more of these in my sealed pool, as it proved to be quite useful. Overflex in combination with a fused Flakeout proved to be a game winner in one of my matches, allowing me to swing for a 9 damage Dominate. Channel Lake Frigid, in the match that I did get to use it properly, proved to be very useful as well. I had it in my opening hand in my first match. I managed to play it and keep it on the field for 2 turns, which allowed me to seriously hamper my opponent's ability to respond to me by making all of their actions cost +1 for several turns. Lighted Up unfortunately underperformed a bit for me. I had been hoping to use it, and I was trying to build turns around using it in 2 matches. In the first match, unfortunately, the opponent still had a card in hand that could block for 3, so they negated the damage and didn't take any of the fused equipment damage for it. In the second match, the turn I was going to activate it, my opponent actually used all their equipment that turn before I had a chance to activate, which was very unfortunate. From the remaining cards, I found Icy Encounter to be quite useful for putting a hitch in your opponent's plans with that extra Frostbite token. And as I said earlier, Honing Hood was very useful if you planned around it, for swapping out red pitch cards for blue pitch cards and then utilizing both in the next turn. So on to the match breakdown. In my first match, I was playing versus Briar. In this game, the opponent had built around dealing arcane damage to me and whittling down our health. So that match mainly opened with us slowly dinging each other down, them dealing arcane, so getting around my defenses no matter what, which was obviously irritating, but that's part of the game. I managed to keep Channel Lake Frigid up for 2 turns, which allowed me to control the early game quite a lot and seriously put a damper on their plans. In the end, I won this game by taking a risk, allowing my health to drop to 2, which would have allowed me to be killed the next turn by arcane damage, then swung for the win with a 9 damage Dominate attack from using Overflex and Flakeout in combination. In match 2, I played against Lexi, so we had a mirror match. I managed to take them down to 2 health while I was on 12 health, Then very unfortunately drew a hand with no attack cards, so had an entire defensive turn, and they managed to do quite an impressive reversal, forcing me to take quite an amount of damage, and I wasn't able to respond with enough damage to overwhelm their defenses. In the end, I believe arcane damage finished me off here. Unfortunately, I didn't take extensive notes while we were playing, so I can't remember exactly. The final match was versus Briar again. This was another player using somewhat arcane damage. In the end, for this match, it was very close. We were both down to 2 health. Unfortunately, they activated Rosetta Thorn, so despite having a card to block in hand, the arcane damage got me again. I feel definitely in our matches, arcane damage was a key component in this, and without any equipment that can block the arcane damage, it was definitely a game winner for people. My overall thoughts from the pre-release were the games were very fun. It felt like every game was close and it was anyone's to win. As my first 3 games of Flesh and Blood ever, I made plenty of tactical misplays and the people were very polite about it, allowing me to take back things as I tried to figure out the correct order of actions. I kept it in my head that I had to be aggressive and make sure I had an empty hand at the end of each of my turns, as if a game will allow me to do turtle gameplay, I will do it by default as it's my preferred way to play. The Lexi and Shiver effects, I made decent use of, but I do believe I missed out 1 or 2 opportunities to take advantage of it, and it probably cost me at least 1 of the games. I really wanted to use Light It Up, but the one opportunity where I really had a chance to use it, the blocking really screwed me over on that, but it's to be expected. So overall, I had a really good time at the event. It was nice to see everyone playing it, and it was fun to actually get to experience the gameplay. There's nothing like a trial by fire to get you into learning all the mechanics and how you have to do each of your plays. I'm looking forward to whatever event I can get to next. Again, it's going to be a limiting factor because it has to be on a weekend so I can actually travel to it, which is unfortunate because I will miss out on most of the Armory events and I would like some of those promos. But hey, I'll improve over time and I guess I'll see people at the next event. Don't forget to join tomorrow for a breakdown of the Innistrad Midnight Hunt pre-release and to see how I went there.